Alright, we're back. Ready to start up on Urza. So, here's Urza, Prince of Kroog, in case you forgot what he looks like. So, our main thing with Urza was using this ability to create token copies of things so that Urza could get completely out of hand. So, I did not go over the list before starting this, but we do have a ton of things in Urza. He is definitely a combo deck, so I want to make sure I remember what all of the combos were. So Power Artifact is reducing activation costs, which allows us to go infinite with a bunch of different things. Transmute Artifact, Mana Drain, Force of Will, Enlightened Tutor. Excuse me. Aura of Silence, Heartstone to reduce his activation cost. Making token copies of Mindless Automaton. Workhorse goes infinite very easily, since it will always come in with the 4 counters on it if we can get Urza down to less than 4 mana to activate. We actually can remove all of the counters to keep making more copies of it, and since Urza gives it +2/+2 and a base 1/1 body, instead of the 0/0, we make infinite creatures that way. Metal Worker is here for the ramp. Fabricate, Gilded Lotus, Lightning Greaves, Sad Robot, Voltaic Construct, who can pay 2 to untap an artifact creature, which when we have Grim Monolith and what's the Basalt Monolith up and running, and making token creature copies of them seems pretty good. Crack Clan Ironworks to help us with the infinite mana thing. Hour of Reckoning is one of our wraths since it doesn't destroy the tokens. Return to Dust, Pact of Negation, Rings of Bright. Oh, right, we can make Infinite Thorns of Amethyst so that our opponents can't cast non-creature spells for the rest of the game. Idyllic Tutor, Tezzeret, Path to Exile, Lodestone Golem, so they can't cast non-artifacts for the rest of the game. Draining Grounds, Liquid Metal Coating to turn our non-artifacts into artifacts. This is primarily for the card Training Grounds. Making this into an artifact and copying it means we have multiple Training Grounds in play, so that reduces the activation on Urza by an extra 2 each time until he's at 1 mana to activate, because it can't reduce it below 1. Metamorph, Cyclonic Rift, Padim, Console of Innovation to give my artifacts hexproof. She usually lets me draw cards too, but that's secondary. Walking Ballista, Anointed Procession. Power Stone Shard. Power Stone Shard is one of those interesting ones because normally you can't run multiple copies of it, so you could never get it to make more than 1 mana, but that's not where we're at. Dance of the Manse, Iron Sash, Tameshi Reality Architect, Offer You Can't Refuse, Swiftfoot Boots, Meteor Golem, Recruiter of the Guard, Spellseeker, Tribute Mage, original creature Urza, when he's named Urza. Shut up, you 5 people who know about Blindseer. Liquid Metal Torque as a backup for Liquid Metal Coating. Arcane Signet, Fierce Guardianship, Flawless Maneuver, Organic Extinction, Knight Paladin from the Warhammer set, and Mana Crypt. Alright, so let's see if anything from Phyrexia. Artifact or creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less. Nope. Argentum Masticore, no. Esperance Ascent, no. Oil counter on it. Remove an oil counter. Target creature gains flying, no. No. Blade of Shared Souls. Makes a 2/2 that then becomes a copy of something. Huh. We already have Phyrexian Metamorph on the list, right? Metal Worker. The metal coating. Yeah, Phyrexian Metamorph. Would we want another 3 mana? Because it's a 3 mana artifact that. But he makes 1/1 copies of it, so equipment can't be attached if it's a creature. Yeah, never mind. That one's actually not going to work. I thought I had a cool thing going, but yeah. Unfortunately, it does not work, so equipment. So creatures cannot be attached to other creatures. This is why there's insane wording on things like the Lycids and the full game text of what's the Kamigawa one? Reconfigure. So that way they stop being creatures while they're attached to the other thing. That it's a whole convoluted thing to stop creatures. So a creature can't be in play and not be a creature unless the game text actually stops it from being a creature entirely. So attaching a creature to another creature has to stop the thing that's becoming attached from being a creature. Otherwise, it is both a creature itself and attached to this other creature at the same time. And the rules kind of like technically the rules could probably handle that, but that means that the one creature attacks and the thing that is physically attached to it doesn't have to attack and go with it and can leave an attack but is still somehow attached to it. Yeah, it becomes a whole thing. The closest they ever got to that type of effect was the soul bond mechanic, where they are connected but not physically attached to each other. So yeah, that is why that would not work, and that is the mentality behind the setup. While I am making infinite artifacts, I don't think I need Cephalopod Sentry. I'm pretty sure I just win the game if I have infinite artifacts. So I do not need the chorus. Duelist of Deep Faith. Mother of Machines. So what are... I have a ton of comes into play abilities, I'm sure, in this set. Although most of them are more the static abilities that I'm trying to get. I believe I have a fair number of comes into play abilities also. Let me double check that fact, though. Let me fact check that one real quick. We have Sad Robot. Because I might not have as many as I thought I did. No. Lodestone Golem. Yeah, I might actually have... Okay, we have Mere Battlesphere, so that helps. Redeem doesn't do anything. Veto, Dance of the Mans. Iron Sash, Tameshi. Okay, there's Meteor Golem. I was gonna say we have Recruiter of the Guard, Spellseeker, Tribute Mage. Okay, Tribute Mage is specifically the 2-drop. And the Knight Paladin. So I have 7. Okay, that's less than I thought I had. I guess we don't need Norn then. Like, she's fine, but now she's in there to shut off. The upside is she shuts off comes into play abilities. So when I have the hey, all of your non-creature spells cost 1 billion mana, if I have to do it with Thorn of Amethyst and not Sphere of Resistance, or when I have to make it so artifacts are the only things you can cast, it might be nice if the comes into play abilities on their creatures especially, but sometimes their artifacts also did not work. But I think that's... Like, at this point, if I'm not running Torpor Orb, I don't think I need Norn, and we are not running Torpor Orb, so that was Norn. Did I skip over anything? Encroaching Mycosynth, no. Oh, non-land permanents I control are artifacts in addition to their other types. Am I using Mycosynth Lattice at all? Because I don't think I am. No. So if I'm not willing to use Mycosynth Lattice to turn all of my opponent's stuff into... Although turning their stuff into artifacts is actually bad with the organic extinction, so I could see why I'm not running that. So maybe... We do insta-lose if we play this to the Karn, Great Creator, but aside from that, we would be fine. Am I running Karn, Great Creator? I am not. Okay. Non-land permanents I control are artifacts. Oh, it's non-lands too, so I wouldn't be completely shut out of the game if somebody played Karn. It's not the same as Mycosynth Lattice. I guess they decided that so that way, if the deck needed this, you couldn't get Karned out for running it. But yeah, I'm already running Liquid Metal Torque and Liquid Metal Coating so that my Urza can copy my non-creature or my non-artifact cards. So, do I want Encroaching Mycosynth? What would I take out for it? So this is a weird one, because this is a one that's helping on an axis that I was not prepared for. It is more expensive than the two Liquid Metal cards, but it's also tutorable. Like, those two are tutorable because they're 2-drops. So, I don't know that I would want to cut either of them. Mindless Automaton, Sphere of Resistance, Workhorse, Metal Worker, Grand Dynamo. It also really helps Metal Worker, since it would turn all of my permanent spells in my hand into artifacts for it, so any non-artifact creatures, enchantments, and whatnot would all technically count at that point for him. It does only affect permanents, so my spells, my instants and sorceries don't get it, and it doesn't affect lands because the one in play doesn't affect lands. This is a weird one. I don't know that I have a card I could readily cut for it, but it is a thing that I am super interested in having in the deck, so... Start the Seeker, Path to Exile, Stone Golem, Training Grounds, Liquid Metal Coating, Battle Sphere, Spine of Isha, Phyrexian Metamorph, Cyclonic Rift, Padeem, Walking Ballista, Pointed Procession, Power Stone Shard, Dovin's Veto, Dance of the Manse. I have no idea what card would come out for it is the biggest problem. Spellseeker, Tribute Mage, Urza Lord High Artificer, Liquid Metal Torque, Arcane Signet, Fierce Guardianship, Flawless Maneuver, Organic Extinction, Night Paladin. Mana Crypt. I'm looking at the Night Paladin, so if I can spend 1 mana to make a copy of it, it would deal the 4 damage to each opponent each time. So it's pretty easy to, like, That's at 1 mana if I have enough of the copies of the other thing, but I also have things like Kroog Clan Ironworks, so I don't even need to get it down that low. In order to kill all of our opponents with it. Like, it might actually be easier to kill all of our opponents with this thing than with Walking Ballista, since we would need to get to the part where we have infinite mana for Walking Ballista. Whereas this one, we might be able to kill them with like 5 extra mana. If we can get the activation low enough and we have a sack outlet for it. Because I'm trying to think what we could take out for this Mycosynth card, and it could be one of the less impressive win cons, since it would help all of my other cards. Yeah, I don't know what card I could afford to take out here for it. Dust. Glorious Signet, Hour of Reckoning. A Construct is a combo piece. Robot. Loaded Lotus. Fabricate. Worker, Thran, Dynamo, Grim Monolith. This is. I was not expecting this difficult of a decision when I decided to go ahead and just do this one after finishing Gix. But this is actually way more complicated than I was expecting, because it's a card that did not exist before and is the type of card I would have put in this deck if it did. I would have almost definitely not cut it. So the question then becomes, which one of the remaining cards on this list can I cut for it? And that is proving to be a very, very difficult question to answer, actually. Like I said, I was not prepared for this one when I decided, oh, I'll just do Urza real quick, too. Why not? It'll only take about an hour. And this one card is probably going to take almost that entire hour, and then, possibly a full hour after that at this rate. Threat, Path to Exile. The problem is that every card, we already built this deck, so every card on here is either part of its way to protect itself, like counter spells and removal and whatnot, or is already a combo piece. So this one is taking the same function as the cards Liquid Metal Coating and Liquid Metal Torque. But both of those cards are tutorable with our Tribute Mage, which is in turn tutorable with our Recruiter of the Guard. So we have a bunch of different ways to get this card, to get these cards, so that we can turn something we need to into an artifact so that we can copy it with Urza. This thing also would turn our cards that we would want to be able to copy that aren't naturally artifacts into artifacts for Urza. So I would very much like to put it on the list. I just don't know what we can afford to take out. Strategy. An offer you can't refuse. The Prince of Kroog, Swiftfoot Boots, Meteor Golem, Recruiter of the Guard, Spell Seeker, oops, Tribute Mage, Lord High Artificer, Liquid Metal Torque, Guardianship, Flawless Maneuver, and Organic Extinction, and Night Paladin. I was not prepared for this at all. Oh, God. What am I going to take out? Like, I keep looking at these cards, and the problem is that without Urza himself being able to be activated in a meaningful way, Encroaching Mycosynth is one of the most do-nothing cards we could put in the deck. In and of itself, it does actual nothing, like stone nothing. It makes our cards more vulnerable to removal spells, because now they can be killed by things that can kill artifacts. So, like, all of the time. Once this thing is down, all of our things are vulnerable to artifact destruction. So, it's really hard to take out anything that has an impact on the game, or that is already a combo piece. And that's basically every card in the deck already. Like, we have a whole bunch of tutors, we have a whole bunch of ramp and removal, and then the rest of the deck is combo pieces, and taking out any of that seems really, really bad, if I'm being honest. But at the same time, my Encroaching Mycosynth is the type of card I probably would have had on the list and probably would have forced into the deck, because it does the thing that I want the Liquid Metal cards for, which is now I can clone my enchantments with Urza and my non-artifact creatures with him also. I'm really curious, if I had known this card existed, if it would have stayed on the list all the way through, if I would have eventually had to cut it because it was the least impactful of the cards that turn my things into artifacts. Like, obviously this is a card I would have gone back and forth on, like, I need to cut it, I can't cut it, I need to cut it, I can't cut it. You know, which one of these things is true? I do not know. I genuinely do not know what I could cut for this card. I'm wondering if I would have eventually cut it because it's worse than the Liquid Metal cards for the deck. But I feel like this would have been like our 61st or 62nd card still. I'm going to put it up here as a possible add-in. Like, assuming that I ever get to play with this Urza. Right, non-land permanents I control, permanent spells, and non-land permanents I own. Yep. Alright, so we'll just do that for now. Otherwise, this video is going to take forever. And also, I don't know that it actually would have made the deck. I think this would have been like a 61st or 62nd card on this list, though. I don't think I would. I know I wouldn't have wanted to cut it because of how badly I want to put it in right now. But technically, nothing in the deck can readily come out for it. I'm just looking at Malcator. So, comes in, he makes a 3/3, and then every one of my end steps, if 3 or more. But the problem is, by the time I'm like having that many artifacts come into play consistently, I'm already winning the game. I don't need him to do anything else. So, I suppose not. All right, so I'm already running the. Ooh, excuse me. The Anointed Procession. Now we get to consider Mondrak. Because this is another card that makes going infinite way easier when I get double tokens. Also, Mondrak itself can make... I believe it's a her. Mondrak can make herself indestructible. Yeah, I think it's Drivnod and Tectool are the male dominuses. And the other 3 are all pretty ladies. And you better not say otherwise to them, because they are all horrifying abominations that can effortlessly crush you. It's not an artifact creature, is she? No, she's a Phyrexian horror. You know, just bonus points in this deck. So, Mondrak is another... If I have her out, I can go infinite. The downside is she is legendary, so I can't turn her into an artifact and start copying her. Right? He doesn't take away the legendary status, does he? Okay. I didn't think so, but... Alright, so what would we like to take out potentially for Mondrak now? After going over this list looking for something to take out for the other thing. Because Mondrak definitely helps enable the infinite combo. That's one of the main reasons why Anointed Procession is in the deck, is because... Not because we're making tokens so I want more tokens, it's because we are making tokens with the idea that we're trying to go infinite, so making double tokens for Ashnod's Altar and Crackland Ironworks is actually a thing. 1 second, I hit the wrong button on my game. And instead of repeating the mission, I went out of it. Just need to set it back up and get it back on the F. There we go. Alright, that should do it. Sorry about that. So yeah, actually having another token producer, just in and of itself, is a huge deal, because it's a second copy we can draw. So, she is all tokens, right? If you would make 1 or more tokens, create twice that many. Yeah, she's not limited to creature tokens, although Urza is making creature tokens, but just as a minor thing, that would be helpful. If she, you know, like it is more helpful that she makes tokens if they're not also creatures. Yeah, we run into the same problem of what do we take out then? Because Mondrak's real strong. And it's definitely another thing that I would not have cut, or would not have cut easily from this deck. So, mm, I'm wondering if it's Mindless Automaton. I did have the habit of forgetting that it is one discard a card to add a counter, so I can't just draw. I can't just discard 2 cards to draw a card. Right, that was a thing on Mindless Automaton, because I think I keep forgetting that it does actually cost a mana to remove the counters. Oh no, it's that it costs a mana to discard the cards in the first place. Yeah, one discard a card to add a counter. Yeah, that's what I meant. It's not. It doesn't cost anything to remove the counters, so I can clone this thing. If I can make infinite copies, I can keep cloning it and drawing cards by removing its 2 counters. It's that I can't discard the extra cards, like discard 2 cards to draw a card for free. I would need mana to do that also. Although if I'm making all of these copies of it and removing the 2 counters to draw a card, I don't think I need that. But it is relevant that it's not free to do that. You know, in case I don't have a sack outlet to get my mana back for making a new one. I have a bunch of cards in my hand that aren't the combo pieces I'm looking for. It does not actually work that way. Amethyst. Gaelic Tutor, Tezzeret the Seeker, Path to Exile, Stone Golem, Training Grounds, Coding, Battlesphere, Spine, Metamorph, Cyclonic Rift. Ashi. Offer I can't refuse. Foot Boots. Your Golem. Recruiter of the Guard. Spell Seeker. Tribute Mage. Urza. Orc. Army keeps coming back to like Meteor Golem and Spine of Ishsa, but once I get going, I can literally blow up all of my opponent's permanents. So that is another option, and in the meantime, they are very castable in this deck. So it's not like I can't just get them down early enough. Like, I don't need Mondrak, but she's certainly doing work in the deck. I would like to have her in here. The problem is that most of the things I can cut are themselves other win cons when I have infinite mana. So, which this deck is very capable of doing with a whole host of cards. So, this might be one of the most expensive commander decks I have because of all of the things it's running, like Power Artifact, Transmute Artifact. Procession, Power Stone Shard, Dance of the Man, Stoven's Veto. Once per turn, when my non-creature permanent returns to hand, I can draw one card. X white, return a land to my hand to reanimate my artifact or enchantment with CMC X or less at sorcery speed. Meshi is good for getting things back. We have Dance of the Manse also, and those are two primary ways for getting back dead artifacts. What else gets us back our dead artifacts? Like, if opponent dealt with one of our things, how are we getting it back? Because we chose Tameshi over Brilliant Restoration. So, granted, a lot of our things are relatively cheap. Like the actual combo pieces. And Tameshi can get back enchantments. So, that lets us get back Training Grounds, which is one of the most important cards in this deck. Which I think is why he's on the list, is because of his ability to resurrect Training Grounds more so than anything else. Granted, we have a ton of artifacts we can potentially get back with him if they die, but I know where my heart's at, and it's definitely with the Training Grounds being able to be returned to the battlefield, so. Sonic Rift. Adventures Fair, Team, Walking Ballista, Anointed Procession. Ooh, excuse me. Like, I could see it being some combination of Meteor Golem or Spine of Ishtar. I think it would be the Meteor Golem at that point. Is Spine legendary, actually? Things I need to know all of a sudden. It is not actually legendary. Okay, so I could make as many copies as I wanted. It would all be 3/3s. I think that's one of the few possibilities. Is it's possible we would want to switch out Meteor Golem. Mondrak is 2 white, Phyrexian Horror 4/4. Anointed Procession. And 1 white Phyrexian. 2 other arts /ers. Give this indestructible. Okay. Oops. That was just Mondrak. We haven't even gotten all the way through the list. I don't think we're going to find anything else. Like, if neither of those two can find any purchase in this deck by default, then I don't think I'm going to find anything that actually is worth putting in. I genuinely forgot Serum Sovereign exists. Is this from the Jumpstart then? Is that why I don't remember it? Because I'm pretty sure I would remember playing against this in Limited. Even with how fast the format was. I guess she was one of the jump... Yeah, her card number's way too high. Alright. I don't think we need Skrelv in this deck. Hmm. But they wouldn't have haste normally. We do have Greaves to move around, but that's about it, so probably not. We don't need Tekethal. Choose a creature that player controls. They sacrifice all creatures they control not chosen this way. Nope. So the Mycosynth Gardens can't copy our token artifacts. So they can't become. It can't become something that Urza's made a copy of where we've lost the original. Although if we have the token copy in play, I don't know that we need it. The other issue is that it's not turning into like a type that we need. If it could copy something else and become an artifact copy of it, similar to Metamorph, that would be a thing. Like that's the main reason Metamorph is in the deck, is because when it copies something, the thing it copies is also an artifact. If it wasn't before, so it gives us a few more options. I don't need White Sun's Twilight or Zenith Chronicler. Okay, so that was Phyrexia, all will be one. Next is Phyrexia, all will be one. Commander, which shouldn't have anything. I don't think we care about the 4 Mirrodin or the thing. Go ahead and do this. Or the Infect one, so. Creatures you control have melee. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact creature you control. Create a token that's a copy of target non-artifact creature you control. Yeah, not so much. Synthesis pod. Don't need Lux Artillery for anything. Probably don't need Clever Concealment. It is a little bit helpful for the same reason that we considered other things over cards like Flawless Maneuver. Because it would save all of our tokens. Glimmer Lens. Yeah, I would actually suggest, if you're running this deck and you're running into a lot of farewells, to run Clever Concealment over the Fierce Guardianship, actually. Or not Fierce Guardianship, Flawless Maneuver. Yeah, don't cut Fierce Guardianship for anything. Flawless Maneuver maybe for Clever Concealment. Glimmer Lens. Nope. No. Storyteller, no. And Glistening Sphere, no. Okay. On to March of the Machine. Which I don't think we'll have anything unless we get a better combo piece. It's something we would rather have than one of the ones we already do have. Mystic Refusal, Assimilate Essence. Oh. Valkyrie. Oh, Seed Shark. Alright, Elish Norn. Source opponent controls. Source's controller loses 2 life unless they pay 1. Sack 3 other creatures to flip her over. Yeah, by the time we're flipping her over, we have probably already won because we had 3 extra creatures lying around for that, which means Urza has activated 3 times, probably. Yeah, no. No to that, Norn. We are not enchantment heavy enough for Afara. Don't need Aaron and Giada. Go to the Essence of Orthodoxy. Mastermind. Guardian of Ghirapur. Paragon. Not running Heliod for this deck. Disciplinary Mascot. Alright, we don't need Arcavios, we don't need Belanon. How do invasions work if they're creatures? Can they block for themselves? Because getting them killed in combat wouldn't count for meeting their requirements to flip them. I genuinely do not know how this one works. Like, if we were to make a token, if we were to turn the battle into an artifact, make it a 1/1. Like, I still control it though, right? So they can't block on its behalf. I need to know how invasions work, like the exact way they work, before I can process if I'm doing this or not. Okay, so I still do control it, so even though it's a 1/1. Huh. That is. That is kind of wild. The idea of making these things. And now tokens. Oh, but you exile them, so I can never get the backside of the token, but I can keep getting the front side if I wanted to. Yeah, that's true. Since they get exiled and cast from exile, the token version will cease to exist. So I could only make copies of the front faces of them. So that's. I'm basically making a copy of a spell at that point. With Urza, so that's way less impressive. Never mind. I was thinking I could do some really cool shenanigans with them, but I forgot that they get exiled and then return, and then you cast them because some of them are spells on the back, and they would all cease to exist at that point. So I would have to flip them first, and then turn the backside into a thing, and then make a copy of the backside as it exists in play for that to work. Not bothering with Order of the Mirror, because that's not at all a thing I would care about. Pegasus, Exarch, Realmbreaker, Squad, can't run Rona. Yeah, first I'm trying to figure out how I can do this really cool thing where I just make infinite copies of a battle and then get to attack it, but that's not going to do a thing anyway. Even if I wanted it to. Sentinel, Skittering Surveyor, Sunfall, Surge, Once and Future. Yeah, this deck doesn't really need Jin-Gitaxias either. Yeah, I don't want to bounce all of my tokens, so that's just another reason not to bother with that effect. Okay. So, yeah, not anything really from March of the Machine. Other than a cool thought experiment on whether or not it would actually be relevant. The copy battles, and as it turns out, not so much. Don't need her talent. The Fire Main Commando. Or another non-token Phyrexian enters the battlefield under your control. Create X3/3 Phyrexian Golem, where X is the number of opponents you have. Golems you control have indestructible. So the Splicer itself is not an artifact creature, so that does hurt its ability to make it into the deck. I was thinking because as long as we have at least 3 opponents, then this thing is 4 bodies for 7 mana, which is still not quite as good as your Battle Sphere, so not quite what I need. And it doesn't have the ability or the benefit of being a creature, or an artifact creature rather, so we do have to turn it into an artifact first before we can start cloning it. Put a 1/1 counter on any number of target creatures and a charge counter on any number of target artifacts. Sacrifice another artifact, proliferate. This creature attacks, return target non-land permanent card with mana value X or less, where X is this creature's power. We don't need the Dove Hawk. Path of the Ghost Hunter. Return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield if its mana value is less than or equal to their total power. And the Vulpine is itself a 3. Yeah, still no. World Soul. Hoofbeats. Sigma. Deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of target artifact that player controls. Clock Chaser Phantom, Flying Vigilance, attacks. The next spell you cast this turn has Convoke. Oh no, I thought that was Miss Meadow Witch. I thought we were done. That's Miss Meadow Vanisher. Becomes tapped, exile up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent. Turn that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Begin the next end step. No. Whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on each other Merfolk, End, or Knight you control. Bitterthorn and Ichor Elixir. Alright. That was March of the Machine. Time to check the Aftermath. Each other human gets +1/+0 in Ward 1. Deification. Non-creature, non-land permanents to owner's hand. No. Flying lifelink. Each legendary permanent you control has Ward 2. Deals combat damage to a player. Return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Alright, Karn, Legacy Reforged. Power and toughness are equal to the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, add colorless for each artifact you control. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana. Steps and phases end. So, Karn makes an absolute ton of mana in this deck if he survives to the next upkeep. Is he actually worth it, though? Like, comparable cards are Metalworker, which costs 2 less mana than him, but requires that I still have a bunch of artifacts in my hand. This is making an absolute ton of mana in this deck. That isn't a combo piece in and of itself. That might really be it. The rest of the things are like ramping artifacts. So if Metalworker isn't actually pulling its weight in this deck, Karn Legacy Reforged would be a good replacement for it. Like if it's too hard to keep enough artifacts in hand for the Metalworker, Forged is 5. Heart Golem. Star. Stars equal highest CMC among my arts. My upkeep. I add X based on arts I control and mana control. Can't be used to cast non-art spells and doesn't be still EOT. So that's a possibility. I don't need Spark Rupture, can't run Tazri, don't care about Tolarian the Contempt, and don't need Vesuvian Drifter. Alright. I don't think we're going to find any artifact-centric combo pieces in the Lord of the Rings set, but maybe. One of the interesting things is since Urza does not make the token non-legendary, we could use him to copy the One Ring once it's grown out of hand to make a 1/1 copy of the One Ring and keep the 1/1 token copy of it instead. And while that is a possibility and that's marginally amusing to me, I don't know that that's actually good enough. Flowering of the White Tree. Forge New. Bronze Bane can't be run. Gandalf does give my artifact spells flash, which is neat, but not actually essential. White Rider doesn't do anything for this deck. Lamdering isn't anything. Hobbit Sting, Horn of Gondor, versus the Bruinen. Landreval, Lost Isles Call. If you attack with 2 or more creatures, yeah, that's not doing much in this deck. That one. Alantar or the File. Pippin. Rangers. Rosie. Or another non-token creature with power 2 less on battlefield. Create a 1/1 halfling. +2/+0 gains lifelink. No. Saruman the White. Sildor. Would let us steal an artifact for a brief period of time, but if I really needed that effect, I'm pretty sure I'd be running something like the Notorious Thief, I think it's called, or something along those lines. Soothing of Smeagol, no. Sting. Eric. Storm of Saruman, surrounded by orcs. No. So we could run the One Ring. I don't think we need to, though. I don't think that's one of the card advantage cards we desperately need. Wizard Rockets. Okay. And I'm not actually expecting much from the Commander deck either, but... Oh, oops, that was the Brothers' War. Sorry. Lord of the Rings. Ah! Alright. Third time. Have to get it now. There we go. That was way harder than it had any business being. Okay. One counter, make a food, draw a card, make a food, then make a halfling for every food. +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. Enters the battlefield, become the monarch. No. Don't need tested frying pan, the gaffer. Exile another. Oh, right. Yeah, we don't need her. Grey Host. No. Here, no. First strike, or another human enters the battlefield, top target creature, and then it makes humans. No. Step that player draws a card. No. Goblin, Orc, or Pirate can't be blocked this turn. Deals combat damage to a player or mass Orcs 3. Can't run Denethor. Fealty to the Realm. No. Monstrosity of the Lake. No. Choose a creature type. Return all creatures that aren't of the chosen type to their owner's hand. Because we do have a ton of soldiers. But I don't think that's where we want to be at. Don't need Subjugate. Don't need Trap. Whenever Boromir enters the battlefield or attacks, top 6 cards of your library. May reveal a human or artifact card. Put in hand. Legendary creature with mana value 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control. You become the monarch. If you are the monarch, create 2/1/1s. Crown of Gondor, the rope, blade, model of unity. Nope. Okay. So that will do it for Urza. So no actual cards added, but we do have 2 potential swaps that I might want to consider. And I have no idea what should come out for Encroaching Mycosynth. Again, this feels like something where I would have to actually have played with the deck a whole bunch in order to decide that these cards should come in. But until that time happens, these are just possible cards we might want to consider from the sets that came out after Urza was built. But yeah, that's going to do it for me for right now. I might be back on later tonight. I don't know. Like I said, I have a ton of stuff to do in Opera Omnia. And it's mostly going to be me, like, even if I could stream Opera Omnia, a lot of it would actually be me watching other people play and copying their gameplay to try and do some of the more complicated fights. So that doesn't feel fair because that's not my content at that point. That's somebody else's, and I'm just pushing the buttons. So even if I could stream that, I wouldn't be doing that. So yeah, that's going to do it for me for now. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good rest of your day.